I'm here with Computer Magic or Danz. What do you prefer to be called?
Danz, probably. Computer Magic's too long.
Fair enough. What have you been up to lately?
I have been working on music. I just finished doing vocals on a song with Les Matos, and I finished a song. I'm writing a song for this bookstore in Brooklyn called the Sketchbook Project. So composing a song for them, um, like a custom song. Oh God, the I think you might hear the my I'm by my window and I think somebody just honked at the street.
Oh no, it's fine. Adds authenticity to the whole ordeal.
But yeah, so just busy working on music.
You said it was for a bookstore?
Yeah, it's for this bookstore in Brooklyn called the Sketchbook Project. The Brooklyn, I believe it is called the Brooklyn Art Library, in Williamsburg. They just approached me because they needed a song to go with this like informational video, and I've done a lot of work for, like, custom work for companies in Japan. So I just finished one for them. So hopefully that'll be something cool.
Is this like a first time for them, or do they do this a lot and reach out to like local artists and stuff like that?
I think this is the first time. They just wanted to have like a video kind of explaining what the library is. It's basically you walk in and there's a bunch of sketchbooks actually, by artists, and you can look at the sketchbooks. It's like with the biggest sketchbook library. It's pretty interesting, but you could Google it and find out more. But yeah, so just finished doing that.
All right. And are you still going around on tour right now, or are you done with that for now?
Um, I have done a few one-off type of shows. I just opened for Ghost last month. I did a couple shows with Les Matos in Canada, and just did a show in Williamsburg with this band Speedy Ortiz. But I'm planning a fall North American tour and a fall European tour, and I'm going to Japan in July. So going to tour a lot at the end of the year.
So to kind of start from the beginning, you said that initially, rather than wanting to be a musician, like when you were a kid, that you wanted to instead be a music writer for like a Rolling Stone or Spin or some other sort of publication. What sparked your interest in that?
I just loved music, and when I was younger, I had a music blog, and I would just write about albums. And I thought that that was my destiny. Like, I was like a music snob as a kid. I mean, I don't know, but I'm really happy that I didn't go into doing that. I remember like reviewing like Animal Collective, Merriweather Post Pavilion, and I was really into all these British bands like the Cribs and the Kaiser Chiefs and stuff. And I was really into all this music that a lot of kids at my school didn't know about. So I thought that having a music blog would be a sort of outlet for me to introduce people to new music. And I was like, I could do this for a living. I could get paid to do this. But yeah, that didn't. I decided to make music instead. And now I'm terrified to read reviews.
What was the blog called, and how long did you run with it for?
So there were a few different versions of it. The first one was called You Love My Music, spelled Mewzick. And then the next one was zdanz.com. I think that's still up. Now Zdanz just redirects to the Computer Magic. But I think if you do zdanz.wordpress.com, it might come up. Yeah. So zdanz.wordpress.com. I used to post all the way up until 2016. Like, I reviewed this 1967 album by Brenda and the Tabulations. let's see, Gary Newman review. I don't know. It's just like, it was just a way for me to just talk about the music that I liked. But now I have a radio show, so I can kind of just talk about it there instead of doing the blog.
That's right, the outer space radio show that you do kind of on a monthly basis now, right?
Yeah, so the radio station, I was doing it at Newtown Radio, and they have been going through like a construction phase. They're moving the studio. So it's been kind of on hold at the moment. But I'm actually doing an episode later today at this new radio station called The Smile to Go. And it's this restaurant in the Lower East Side. And I used to work there. And they started up a radio station, like all new gear, like new turntables, new everything. And I'm going there later to kind of help them start out. So we'll see how that goes. But that'll be like a different version of Outer Space, but kind of the same idea for the show. Just like me playing music and talking about video games.
How did the show initially come about?
I was rehearsing at the studio called Converse Rubber Tracks. It was actually like for the shoe company Converse. They used to have a music studio in Brooklyn. And one of the guys there had a radio show at Newtown Radio. And I was like, oh, I always thought of doing that. He's like, let me introduce you to the guy who runs it. And so I just started doing it then. I was like, okay. I mean, it was a lot because the radio, Newtown, you're basically just there by yourself. Like the guy who runs the station, Mark, was like, okay, so you do this means you're on air, and then you press this, and I kind of had to all take it in and remember it for the next time. But since it's live, it's like pretty scary. Yeah. I think it's kind of helpful though to do it live because you kind of just have to go with the flow. And I don't know, especially like talking, like if I have my friend on and there's like an awkward silence, like just like learning how to deal with that because you're on the air and you're like, okay, well, what'd you eat for lunch today or something like that.
After the blog that you did, you decided to do some DJing for a while you were up at Hunter College. What was that like, and did you have like a different stage name that you went by back then?
Yeah, so I moved down to the city. When I was living upstate in high school, when I had the music blog, I was collecting vinyls and stuff. Like for Christmas, I would ask for vinyls. And I would ask for like a turntable for one Christmas, and then like save money for a mixer, and then ask for another turntable a couple years later, and I would like teach myself how to DJ with vinyls in my room. And I had it in my head like, I'm gonna move down to the city and be like this awesome DJ. And I remember I got like a Rode case for my whole DJ setup. And I was 17 or 18 when I moved down to the city, and I was able to solidify a DJ gig by being like, hey, like I'm this music blogger, and people know my blog, like have me DJ your party. And I remember like, so should I bring my turntables and mixer? And they're like, no, you just show up like with some CDs. And I was like, wait, what? So I had been like in my head thinking that you had to have all this gear to DJ. And then I show up to these parties and there's like, people DJing off their laptop and, like very, very easy, which I didn't think it was. But so I did that for a couple of years till I was like 21. But I was DJing a bunch of nights a week. I was going to school and also working at a restaurant to afford rent, and school just kind of took the back burner. And so I ended up what I thought would be taking time off, but now I guess I'm would be considered I dropped out. But um, I dropped out of school, was DJing pretty much full time and working at restaurants, and it just kind of caught up with me. Like it was just too much late nights. I'd be DJing like 4 nights a week or something, and never seeing the sun. And I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. I need to figure my life out. And then my mom had moved to Florida after I graduated high school, and I decided to move down there with her for a little bit.
So that was around the time that you started being Computer Magic and putting out your own music, is when you moved down to Tampa.
Yes. Yeah, so when I moved down there, there was nothing to do. She was like in a suburb of Tampa, so it wasn't like I could walk anywhere like in New York City. Like she would go to work and I'd be home all day, just like a bum. My mom was like, get a job, like do something, like you can't just live here for free and do nothing. So I don't know, I had downloaded Ableton because I thought because I had seen DJs use it, and I was like, oh, let me mess around with this program. And I discovered you could make a song with it. And so I would just make songs by ear. Like I didn't know that I knew it was really crazy actually, because I didn't know that I had that in me to make a song. But I would show my mom, like, hey mom, look what I did today. And she was surprisingly impressed. Like she thought that it was good, which I didn't think it was, but she inspired me to like put lyrics on my music, and I put it up online, and people happened to like it. And then from my music blogging days, like I would get so many promo emails sent to me, like, hey, new album out by this band from California. So I knew how a promo email looked. So I would like construct my own promo emails for Computer Magic and send them to the blogs that I followed. So basically just like doing my own PR and just uploading everything to SoundCloud, and no expectations. But yeah, so that's how it started.
And the name Computer Magic, you said that it comes from a line by Viv Savage in Spinal Tap. Do you remember how you first came across that film?
Yeah, so when I was in Florida, I had a lot of time on my hands, as I said. But I would just go through, I would watch so many movies. And yeah, they're like I think it's like in the scene when they're in a van and they're playing a video game, and he says that. And I was like, oh, that's funny. That's a pretty good name. And I didn't, if I had known that I would have gotten this much, that people would like my music this much, and I was able to make a career out of it, I think I might have gone with Danz instead, because I feel like it's more accessible. And Computer Magic, I feel like kind of puts me in a corner of electronic music. People hear computer and they just assume that is that, which it is. Like a lot of it's electronic, but there's some other songs of mine, like Bionic Man, for instance, which is kind of more rock and roll oriented, and like Gone for the Weekend has guitar in it. So in hindsight, I don't know if I would have picked Computer Magic, but I'm sticking with it now.
So you've said that your music and overall aesthetic is influenced by 70s sci-fi films like Barbarella, Logan's Run, Zardoz, stuff like that. Is there a specific film that you can point to that kind of piqued your interest in the genre in the first place?
I don't know. I guess probably like going through the Star Wars, the original trilogy. I wanted to watch more movies from that decade where they were trying to, make what the future would look like. But it was always kind of funny to me because it's like like in Barbarella, it's kind of bad, but in a great way. Like she's in like the spaceship with a fur carpet. Like it's just really funny. But yeah, I mean, 2001, A Space Odyssey, Kubrick. Like that movie is just visually like amazing to me. Um, I tried to incorporate it at least like subconsciously, like what what soundtrack would I had made to Barbarella or something, but I don't know. But yeah, I like those movies.
And then on a side note, I noticed an odd little detail on your SoundCloud. It says that you're from Messier 17, which has like a bunch of different names: Omega Nebula, Horseshoe
Yeah.
Nebula, Checkmark. Like, why this astro body out of the? I think it was 110.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. um I started using the name those names for my mixes, and I just thought it was like a nerdier way to say that I'm from outer space. It's like who because I don't think that many people actually know. I mean, unless they googled it or unless they're interested in outer space. But I don't know. I thought that was funny. That might be the name of my new radio show today, because I might have to think up a different name because it's on a different radio station. So maybe like Messier 25 or something. I don't know.
In a lot of your music videos and live performances, you utilize a lot of like spacesuits and uniforms and things like that. Do you make those yourself, or do you have like a contact to hook you up with those outfits?
Some of them I've bought from the souvenir shop from the Cape Canaveral. I think it's like the Cape Canaveral NASA, the Kennedy Space Center. You can get the orange one and the blue one flight suit off there. But the other ones, so I fit into a kid's XL. So I'll just buy like off eBay kids XL flight suit and then buy a bunch of patches and then put the patches on. So I have old space camp flight suits. And actually, like as a girl, it's a lot easier to just like go out on stage with that instead of like, what should I wear? I can't wear the same thing as I wore the last show. I gotta wear something different. But I don't know. It's just like a cool, easy uniform. So I've just stuck with that. Although I'm trying to like not do it all the time. But I think people kind of know me. I was wearing spacesuits and stuff.
In one of your earlier interviews, you said that you usually tend to not write from your point of view, preferring to take on the perspective of characters from like film and literature. Is that still the case, or have have your songs become more personal over the years?
I think that I'm definitely more okay with being personal, even when I write from the perspective of a character in a movie or something. That there's still like a little bit of me in there. But I guess an example, like my last record, Danz, there's a song called Drift Away. And my stepbrother died when I was younger, and that was kind of like a song dedicated to him, and like how I had a dream where he was in it, and it was like a happy dream where I was kind of like letting go. But like that was really difficult for me to write. I don't know. It's at first, like I was just living in Florida, like not doing anything. So it was like, my life's boring. What am I gonna write about? Like sitting on the couch today, like, and I don't know. So I think it helped me to be inspired, and I still do that. Like if I'm at a loss, I'm like, dang, what am I gonna write about? I don't know. Anything can inspire me, like playing a video game and the character in a video game, or I just watched this weird independent British movie a couple days ago called Beast. That was freaking so scary. But like, I don't know, like the characters are so interesting that why not write about them? Because they have so much more drama. Like I don't think my life is very drama filled, so sometimes I think it's fun to get inspiration from movies and stuff.
You've also gained quite a bit of a following in Japan after you released a few albums exclusively in that country. How did that whole deal come to fruition with like Scientific Experience and Phonetics and Mind State?
With the Japan record label, I was just putting my stuff on SoundCloud. There was this label called White Iris, Black Iris, that had flown me out to LA to re-record some of my songs into a studio EP. So that had come out in the States. Pretty sure I had released a Kitsune EP. And yeah, so they found me and wanted to compile a bunch of my songs into a record there. And I said yes, and I toured there, and I've been pretty much just releasing music regularly and touring there ever since.
Were you like an admirer of Japanese culture from a young age, like with anime or video games or anything?
Not necessarily. Like, I think as I'm older and go there more often, that I'm more appreciative, and now I've seen like pretty much all of the Miyazaki movies, and I've been playing a lot of Xenoblade Chronicles. But yeah, I don't know. When I was younger, I don't know. It was just kind of surprising to me. I was never like, oh, I want to go to Japan someday. Like I just didn't think that was a possibility for me. I never thought that would actually happen. So when it did, it was just super surprising. And now every time I go, I get more interested in the culture, and like I want to learn Japanese, and I eat ramen all the time, like actual ramen, not just like, the cup of noodles.
And didn't you donate a couple of songs to like various companies while you were over there initially?
Yeah, so those companies actually approached me to write songs specifically for the commercials. So I was just like commissioned by them. So like Panasonic, for instance, approached my record label and asked them if I would be interested in composing a song for their commercial. So they just paid me to basically write a song for them. And then the contract is like they own it for a certain amount of time, and then I get the song back so I can release it. So it's a pretty good deal and like a good way to make extra income. And they give me like complete creative freedom. So it's not like they're like, oh, well, can't be more like this or more like this. They're pretty much happy as long as it sounds like a computer magic song, which is easy to do.
Have you released any of the songs from the commercials yet, or are you still waiting for that time period to...
A lot of them. So Alien Friend, there's one called Alien Friend that was in a QP half commercial, and that is, I think, just like a standalone single on Spotify and iTunes and stuff. And the other ones, there's one called Cloud City and one called Planet of Dreams, and I just released those on this album called Super Rare this past December.
The first full-length LP that you released in the West back in 2015, Davos, is named after a ski resort in New York where your dad worked and lived. What is it about that place that made you want to dedicate a whole album to it?
I grew up there. My dad lived there. My parents were divorced, so my dad lived like smack dab in the middle of Davos, and my mom and my stepdad also lived in Davos, and I would like ride my bike to my dad's house and like go to the playground there, and there's like a bunch of condos there, and there's this big abandoned ski lodge and this big abandoned hotel. It was just really strange, but and the ski lifts were still there. I think they ended up selling them to a different ski resort, but there's like pictures of my dad. My dad's like on the ski map of Davos, which is pretty funny. I think I posted it like a long time ago on my Instagram, but my dad, it's kind of funny. Like my dad was the man. Like that was the highlight, I think, of his life, was like being a caretaker of this ski resort. And then it went out of business, and now like he still lives there, and the people that own the ski resort like aren't doing anything with it. So he's basically just like, now he just like mows the lawns of, there's people that still live in the condos, so he still is a caretaker for the people that live there. But I don't know, it's like kind of sad because it's just like this big lodge just sitting there. Yeah, it was a big part of my life. Like whenever I came home from school, I passed the Davos sign. There's this like big Davos sign there. That's like where the logo from Danz like comes from Davos. Oh, sorry, the logo from Davos comes from Davos, not Danz.
And then that same year, you founded your own label, Channel 9 Records, so that you could get out physical copies of your works in the States. What made you want to do it yourself as opposed to signing with another label as you had done in Japan?
So I had a licensing company, and they licensed my song Running to Lexus. And I had made like a good amount of money from that ad. And I decided to invest in working with this guy, Claudius Mittendorfer, who had worked with like Block Party and Interpol and all these other big acts. So he helped make Davos sound awesome. So I had that, and I got it mastered, and I had got the artwork done. Everything, it was like a complete package. And I sent it around to all the record labels that I really loved, and all the responses I got were, "Wow, this album is great, but not right now." And I was like, well, fuck this. Like, I worked so hard on this. I spent so much money making it. Like, I have more money from this commercial. Like, I should just put it out myself. So I found a distribution company called Cobalt, and basically, like, paid for PR, paid for all the money from the commercial just went into Davos. But like packaging the record, finding physical distributors, and I mean, it was a lot to figure out. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely kind of freeing because I do everything else myself, like write, produce, write, mix, master the songs. So like, why not just put them out myself? And I think it kind of goes along with my career, like DIY. But yeah, it's like overwhelming doing the record label, but it's like the path I'm down now. I've been making music for like 8 years, so for me to release on a regular label, I think would be weird because most labels take 50% of whatever your income you're making. I would make zero money. And that's the other thing too, because I was shopping Davos around, and like this one label came to me and they were like, yeah, you know, like we'll release it and the percentage will be 50-50. And I was like, what? Like, I put so much money into making this record and everything's done, and you're gonna take 50%? Like, but I guess like if you get signed to like a big label, it makes sense because they're spending a lot of money on, you know, PR and like AdWords to get YouTube views up, and you know, like these artists that are signed to a label, that just the label spend money on AdWords for YouTube and they get like 1 million views because the label is paying for everything. So sometimes I'm like, man, I wish I had a label, but other times I'm kind of happy that I don't have to give 50% away to anybody else. So
would it be too much of a stretch for me to assume that the name is a reference to Plan 9 from Outer Space?
It's not. So I made a song called Science Channel 9 like a long time ago, and I don't know, I just like the name, so but that would be cool if I had thought of that, but no. I think of Channel 9 as like a weird channel that like if you're listening to the radio you accidentally tune in and hear like computer magic coming through the radio. It's like Channel 9. I don't know.
Have you ever debated on signing other artists on board and like, I don't know, managing them as well?
I did. I actually signed a band like a year ago called Mal Lynx from Puerto Rico. This guy. And it was just too much. And I felt bad because all the money that I make is like funneled back into computer magic. And to be a proper label, you have to spend like money on PR to get this band known, and I just couldn't be a good label for anybody else other than Computer Magic right now. I need like a grant of like I don't know, $500,000, and I'd be a great label, but who's gonna give me that? But yeah, I don't know. Maybe in the future, if I license more songs to car companies.
You also have a side project, Cody and Danz, with your friend Cody Crump. How did the two of you meet, and how are the plans for the new album that you've been working on going?
So we share the same licensing company, and the girl who owns the company flew me out to LA to have me work with all these different people to, write songs that she could license. So very catchy songs. And Cody and I, one of the people she had me meet was Cody, and we were pretty similar. We both love Radiohead and like listen to Nine Inch Nails, and we both are big Tim and Eric fans, and like we're both pretty goofy, and yeah, I don't know. So we just pretty much had fun working on songs and just decided to put an EP out. And it's a fun side project because we don't take it too seriously. Because like I have Computer Magic, he has his own solo project. So like Cody and Danz is like just for fun. And we're like trying to figure out how we're gonna put out. We finished a full length. We're trying to figure out how to put it out. Because it's like I could put it out on Channel 9, but like I said, it's just so much work. I'm like, I don't know. I want somebody else to like figure all this stuff out.
And then I also read that you even did some modeling work a little while back for Sofia Coppola's Milk Fed clothing, and for X-Girl, which is run by Kim Gordon of Sonic Youth. Was that something that you always wanted to do, or did those opportunities just kind of spring up out of nowhere?
That was another thing. Like my label in Japan got that for me and asked if I'd be interested, and I was like, yeah, why not? Get some free clothes. But yeah, I mean the names just associated with those brands are pretty impressive, so it was awesome to be a part of that. It was kind of strange though, like for Milk Fed they had like a cardboard cutout of me like in the Japanese store, but I never got to see it, but I like telling that story.
And then in regards to your latest album, Danz, you said that you wanted to take a darker approach with the record to better reflect certain feelings that you had during the writing process. If it's not too invasive and without going into too much detail, may I ask what was happening that made you want to vent these frustrations?
So I was living in New York City for a long time, and my boyfriend lived upstate, and I was going back and forth a lot. And I was like, oh, I'll just move upstate and save money on rent, and we can live together. And it was just like a mistake because, I mean, not our relationship was great, but it was just I felt so isolated. And even though I'm kind of like a hermit in New York City, at least I could go walk down the block and like be surrounded by people and like have an interaction when I get a coffee or something. But like upstate, my only interaction would be like myself all day. So I felt just very isolated, and I felt really frustrated because I felt like I had put so much effort and work and money and everything into Computer Magic, and I felt like even though I had success in Japan and some people know me in the US, I just felt like to me I wasn't as successful as I wanted to be. And I was like, I hate the name, I want to change my name, like Computer Magic puts me in a corner. I was going to change it to Danz, and I was like, just had kind of like an identity crisis, and I was like, why am I up here, why am I upstate? I feel like I'm retired. I should be in New York City, like hustling, like trying to make it big, whatever that means. but yeah, so I just spend hours in my studio, and like Amnesia, for instance, was about like, I don't know, just being really hard on yourself and like forgetting who you are and during your creative process, and just like getting frustrated with everything you're doing. So to me, it's like darker than a lot of my other stuff. But there's like lighter songs on Danz, like Clouds is a little more lighthearted. But Amnesia to me is like a frustration song, I think. But yeah, it was just my way of dealing with it. Like, eventually I came to terms and I was like, I think I was too invested in other people's perception of me, and I think that was kind of driving me crazy. And I was just comparing myself, to other artists like that were on record labels and who had billboards on, in New York everywhere, and like are touring and not having to worry about everything. But that's just like social media, and I don't know. I was just going through a rough time, but I think like being able to make music kind of got me through that.
For the song Space and Time, Pale Blue Dot, you said that was based off of a dream you had. May I ask what exactly it was that you dreamt?
Yeah, so it was just about kind of floating around the earth. But in the lyrics, I start out as kind of like a firefly, or just like what I envisioned was being on a lake, and it's just very serene, and you're surrounded by like fireflies around the lake, and then you zoom out, and then you get farther and farther away from the earth, and then you're floating around the earth, and then you zoom out even more, and the earth is very small, and it's just, I don't know, I just envisioned the earth just getting smaller and smaller, and just kind of like floating out into space. So that's what that song is about.
And then you just did a video for another one of the songs off the album, Ordinary Life, and you said that you utilized a bondage outfit to act as a sign of rebellion. Could you elaborate on that? Because I usually, at least for me, when I think of something like that, it comes off as, a sign of obedience and servitude, unless that's supposed to be ironic.
I just thought of like an AI of the future. I saw, I don't know, like on YouTube or Reddit or something, like this girlfriend in Japan who's like in a little box, and she's holographic, and she basically like just like, hey, how was your day? How are you doing? And just like very always happy to see her owner or whatever. And then I saw the new Blade Runner, and Ryan Gosling's like holographic girlfriend that's like gives him holographic dinners every night, and like always is by his side, and is always happy and loving. And it was I don't know, I was just like, that's just so weird, because in human nature, like, people have conflict, but then with an AI, they're always going to be happy and like accepting of you no matter what you do. And I just thought, well, what if they become smarter and they then have their own thoughts, which might eventually happen. And I wanted to kind of make a love song based on that idea. And so like, it's not like the AI isn't mad. She's just like, I don't want to just be in this box anymore. I don't want to just make dinner. I want to like travel. I want to see the world. I want to be a human girl, So the video was just like basically the AI like she just wants to be different, and the director knew this designer Creepy Yeehaw who makes clothes for like FKA Twigs and like Rihanna and all these like big musicians, and we just thought that would be a cool way to do that. And I'm always like covered up in an astronaut outfit a lot of the time, so it was something different for me. But we just needed like, what's the contrast to a maid outfit? Like, I don't know. We were like, maybe this. But yeah, you're right. Like, they're both pretty, they're both kind of similar in that way.
I think that's it for me. Anything else you want to add?
I have a video for Perfect Game coming out soon. That's completely 2D animated. Yeah, it's really cool. This guy did the whole thing. And yeah, so just watch out for Perfect Game.
All right, perfect. Thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
All right, thank you.